Yo, hold on. Everybody stop what you are doing right now because the streets are absolutely ablaze and I cannot contain this for another second. Welcome back. This is your headquarters for everything that matters in the culture. And today we are sitting on a powder keg of catastrophic proportions. We have got Cardi B and Stefon Diggs apparently rekindling whatever it is they had. We have got J. Prince Jr. tangled up in another situation that has left somebody hospitalized with a bullet wound to the chest. Finesse 2 times is screaming from the rooftops that he wants zero involvement with any of it. Big Court dropped one of the most profound reality checks hip-hop has heard in years concerning the Gucci and Pooh Shiesty debacle. And oh yeah, Cisco himself popped up in the comments section flexing about owning his masters. We are covering all of it, every single morsel. So lean in, lock your phone upright, and do not even think about scrolling away because this one right here is loaded from the opening syllable to the very last breath. All right, let us jump straight into the inferno, shall we? Because the Cardi and Stefon saga has taken yet another bewildering turn that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, anticipated. Now, cast your memory back for a moment. The last occasion these two graced our collective consciousness together, the atmosphere was frigid, glacial even. You recall the Super Bowl fiasco, correct? Word circulating through every credible pipeline was that Stefon had extended an invitation to one of his previous partners to attend the big game, and folks were whispering that Cardi was absolutely incensed about the entire arrangement. When the press caught up with her and posed the question about whether she would be there supporting her man, what did she deliver? A bone-dry, emotionally barren 2-word response. Good luck. Accompanied by the most devastating side glance known to modern civilization and an immediate departure from the conversation. She pivoted on her heel and vanished like the question itself was beneath her acknowledgement. Now, I've witnessed that particular combination of the lateral eye movement and the swift exit on multiple documented occasions throughout my extensive career of tracking these interpersonal dynamics, all right? And let me illuminate something for the uninitiated. When a woman of Cardi's magnitude deploys that specific maneuver, it translates to one thing and one thing exclusively. She was seething, absolutely volcanic beneath the surface. Whatever Stefon had orchestrated with that Super Bowl invitation had detonated something deep within her, and she was not about to provide anyone the satisfaction of watching her unravel in public. That is composure forged in the furnace of repeated disappointment. And if you've ever loved somebody who continually tests your threshold, you recognize that expression intimately. So, naturally, that Arctic display fueled an avalanche of disillusionment speculation. Every blog, every podcast, every comment section was ablaze with declarations that Cardi and Stefon were finished, done, concluded. The obituary for their relationship had been composed, and the culture collectively moved forward. Which is precisely why the footage from Washington, D.C. several days ago sent absolute shockwaves through every corner of this industry. Because what happened in that capital city obliterated every assumption we had been operating under. Here's what transpired. Stefon Diggs did not merely attend Cardi's concert. This man brought his entire bloodline with him, his family, his people. They were embedded in that venue, experiencing the full spectacle of a Cardi B performance. And from every account trickling through the grapevine, they were having an extraordinary time. The energy was electric. The vibes were immaculate. This was not the behavior of two individuals navigating a bitter separation. This was warmth. This was familiarity. This was, dare I venture, reconciliation energy radiating from every direction. But the real detonation occurred after the curtain descended, in what can only be characterized as a development that obliterated every narrative. Cardi departed that venue alongside Stefon Diggs, the father of her child. They left together. Now, absorb that because the implications are staggering. This is the same man who allegedly humiliated her on the grandest sporting stage in American culture. And here she is, voluntarily climbing into a vehicle beside him after performing for thousands. Somebody from the crowd captured the moment and asked Cardi what she thought about Offset, and I need you to hear how she responded to appreciate where her headspace resides. Her reaction was essentially, why in the entire world would you bring that name up right now? This is our event. This is our space. She was dismissive, not hostile, not emotional, just genuinely perplexed that anybody would inject that subject into a positive moment. And then voices from the crowd expressing adoration, people calling her name. She was radiating, glowing in a way that suggests whatever transpired between her and Stefon during that frozen Super Bowl period has been addressed and potentially resolved behind closed doors. Now, the interesting element is the comment sections absolutely erupted over this. Folks were livid, genuinely furious, and I sat there scrolling through reactions in genuine bewilderment because I could not comprehend why strangers were this emotionally invested in another grown woman's decision to spend time with the father of her infant child. Were they concerned she would end up carrying another baby? Is that the root of this outrage? The notion of two adults who share a child coexisting in the same vicinity had somehow become a criminal offense in the court of public opinion. It baffles me. Cardi's a grown woman with resources, intelligence, and autonomy to navigate her personal affairs however she determines. The pearl clutching was wildly disproportionate. But that's the parasocial machinery, is it not? People feel ownership over narratives they were never invited to participate in. Now, let me pivot, because what I'm about to lay in front of you is significantly heavier in both consequence and gravity. And I need everybody to genuinely brace themselves, because this situation involving J. Prince Jr., NBA Ben 10, and the Detroit artist All-Star JR is one of the most tangled, volatile, and alarming sequences of events I've covered in a very long time. Let me reconstruct from the foundation because the layers are genuinely labyrinthine. J. Prince Jr. entered into a romantic entanglement with a young woman. Nothing unusual in isolation. However, this particular woman happens to be the mother of a child fathered by All-Star JR, a recording artist out of Detroit with his own following and reputation. J. Prince Jr. apparently decided it was necessary to broadcast certain declarations directed at All-Star JR concerning this shared domestic situation, and those declarations carried an unmistakable undercurrent of aggression. The message was essentially, trust the process, which, in coded vernacular, operates as a thinly veiled territorial warning. Here is where the narrative takes a profoundly disturbing detour. Circulating intelligence suggests, and I want to be transparent that I am relaying what multiple sources have communicated, that J. Prince Jr. may have physically disciplined the child of that young woman, the child who is also the offspring of All-Star JR. Pause on that. Let the magnitude of that accusation settle into your consciousness, because if even a fraction carries validity, we have departed the realm of petty romantic jealousy and entered territory that ignites a different category of response entirely. A father hearing that another man has put hands on his child? That is a detonator with no safety mechanism. That's the kind of intelligence that rewires irrational decision-making and activates something primal and ungovernable. According to the timeline being constructed, J. Prince Jr. obtained intelligence regarding All-Star JR's physical whereabouts, and rather than addressing it through personal confrontation or the judicial system, the decision was apparently made to dispatch operatives. NBA Ben 10, who maintains direct affiliation with NBA Youngboy and operates within the Mob Ties ecosystem, along with another individual identified as Dead End Ron, were allegedly deployed to confiscate the chain from All-Star JR's neck. Now, this is the precise juncture where the concept of the crash dummy becomes horrifyingly relevant. We had an extensive conversation about this phenomenon recently, did we not? The architecture of how individuals are manipulated into executing hazardous operations on behalf of someone who remains insulated from direct consequences. If what is being reported carries accuracy, we are witnessing a textbook manifestation of that dynamic. You are sending people into a hornet's nest, and when the hornets respond with venomous fury, the person who dispatched the infiltrators is not absorbing the stings. The confrontation deteriorated rapidly. What began as an attempt to seize jewelry escalated into a physical altercation. A violent scuffle erupted, and in the chaos of that collision, All-Star JR managed to gain possession of a firearm. Reports indicate he discharged that weapon and struck NBA Ben 10 directly in the chest, a bullet to the thoracic cavity, life-threatening in the most absolute terms, millimeters determining the difference between survival and a memorial service. And here is the detail that transforms this from alarming to genuinely haunting. After discharging the weapon, All-Star JR reportedly stood over him, stood directly above the wounded individual while members of the Mob Ties delegation scattered, fled, dispersed. The people who arrived with numerical superiority and aggressive intent abandoned their fallen associate the moment the calculus reversed, and All-Star JR, the man they came to intimidate, was the last one standing. Ben 10 was transported via gurney in critical condition. Current intelligence suggests stabilization, but the road from critical to stable is not a guarantee of recovered. This young man's trajectory has been irrevocably altered by an encounter he may not have initiated of his own volition. This brings me to the pattern multiple observers have flagged, a pattern demanding acknowledgement even if it generates discomfort. J. Prince Jr. appears to occupy the proximity of catastrophic events with a frequency that defies coincidence. He was reportedly present when Duke the Jeweler was fatally wounded, in the atmosphere when Takeoff was gunned down, and now connected to circumstances resulting in Ben 10 absorbing a gunshot to the chest. 3 separate incidents of extreme violence, one common adjacent figure. At what juncture does the pattern become the portrait? Ben 10 himself once expressed a sentiment advocating for a designated arena where individuals who fancy themselves lethal enforcers could congregate and eliminate each other. While framed with humor, the underlying architecture was deadly serious. And then, when violence arrived at his own ribcage, his mother appeared praising the divine for protecting her son. That juxtaposition hollowed me out, genuinely. An individual who romanticizes carnage on one hand, a mother weeping with gratitude on the other. These young men have been so marinated in the mythology of invincibility, they cannot perceive the contradiction between celebrating violence and grieving when it visits their doorstep. These kids need hope. I say that without a shred of performance. The pipeline funneling them into the crash dummy apparatus is starving them of alternatives, presenting destruction as the singular path to recognition, and the toll is measured in hospital beds, prison cells, and cemetery plots. Speaking of wanting absolutely zero involvement, Finesse 2 times, contractually tethered to J. Prince Jr., is making it abundantly clear he wants that tether severed with extreme prejudice. His message was unambiguous. No proximity to chaos, no association with turmoil. He is observing wreckage accumulate, and his survival instincts are screaming to establish maximum distance before that gravitational pull absorbs him as collateral damage. And can you fault him when the people in that ecosystem are absorbing gunfire, when allegations include physical harm to children? The impulse to extricate yourself is not cowardice. It is the most lucid self-preservation available. Finesse sees the trajectory. He recognizes where this conveyor belt terminates, and he is attempting to leap off before it deposits him somewhere irreversible. All right, let me decompress the atmosphere slightly because we have been operating at maximum intensity, and I need to recalibrate before we transition. Take a breath with me, gather yourself, because what comes next is a different frequency entirely, and the contrast is going to serve us beautifully. Cisco, the legendary architect of one of the most iconic compositions in the history of popular music, the Thong song. Someone in our community made an observation that I initially dismissed as hyperbole, but subsequently verified through personal experience. They said, go revisit the Thong song because that record resonates differently now than it did upon initial release. Skeptical at first, I actually listened with fresh ears, with the maturity and musical appreciation that comes with years of living. And I have to concede, that composition is a masterwork that was perhaps underappreciated in its era because the subject matter eclipsed the artistry. The instrumentation is otherworldly. The melodic architecture, the layered production, the sheer musicianship embedded in every measure. It transcends what we categorize as a novelty record. This is genuinely sophisticated music wearing the disguise of a cheeky anthem about undergarments. It resonates with such amplified potency now because contemporary production has largely abandoned that complexity. We exist in an era of minimalism, sparse beats and repetitive loops, so when you revisit something constructed with orchestral craftsmanship, the contrast makes it feel revelatory. The golden era produced recordings with a depth of musicality that the current landscape simply does not replicate with the same consistency. Then Cisco himself materialized in the discussion and dropped a declaration deserving its own recognition. He owns the masters to that recording. The financial benefit that composition generated during its commercial peak flows to him. The benefit it continues generating through streaming, licensing, synchronization, and every revenue mechanism flows to him as well. In an industry where master ownership remains one of the most consequential battlegrounds, that is a statement of sovereignty carrying tremendous weight. Another observation crystallized why that record endures. Someone articulated that the Thong song is not about lyrical content. The melody bypasses analytical faculties and communicates directly with something instinctual, more visceral, a composition your body responds to before your mind processes a single syllable. That is the hallmark of truly exceptional music, when the arrangement possesses sufficient gravitational force to captivate independently of narrative. The backstory is charming. Cisco composed it after encountering a woman wearing the garment for the very first occasion in his life. So profoundly impactful, he immediately contacted associates to share the revelation. A man so overwhelmed by visual experience, his first instinct was to translate it into art. No market research, no focus groups, just a man, a moment, and the irresistible compulsion to transform sensation into melody. The record samples The Beatles, features a full orchestral arrangement in its video, and the man is married now, content, collecting residuals from a song that will outlive every trend that has emerged since. That is a lasting creative legacy. Now let me transition into something demanding serious intellectual engagement because Big Court delivered commentary on Gucci Mane and Pooh Shiesty that I believe should be required listening to every person who participates in hip-hop culture. His perspective dismantles one of the most toxic and persistent delusions in our collective consciousness. The situation centers on allegations that Gucci cooperated with authorities, that he provided information, that he violated the code. The response from certain quarters was volcanic disappointment, outrage, betrayal from individuals who have never exchanged a single word with the man. Big Court looked at this spectacle and essentially said the code of the streets is fundamentally defective. It is a rigged system never designed to protect you, but to consume you. He observed grown adults walking around expressing genuine devastation as if they just discovered a beloved childhood myth was fabricated. Their admiration was constructed upon the premise this artist authentically practiced the violence he narrated. When evidence suggested otherwise, their foundation crumbled. But here's the critical interrogation. Why is it that within our culture, we exclusively idolize the most destructive versions of ourselves? When Gucci was incarcerated, overweight, battling substance dependency, allegedly engaged in hazardous activity, he was canonized, the hero, the icon. But when he emerged transformed, physically healthy, mentally clear, married, financially strategic, deliberately distancing himself from destructive elements, the culture declared him a clone, inauthentic, boring, unworthy. The version visibly self-destructing was celebrated. The version choosing preservation was rejected. That communicates with uncomfortable clarity that we have been conditioned conditioned to equate self-annihilation with authenticity. And that is not merely problematic, it is lethal. Big Court addressed the expectation that Gucci should have responded with some retaliatory street gesture rather than his measured approach. His rebuttal was surgical. You cannot expect a man who has evolved beyond the circumstances you worshipped him for to regress simply because your fantasy requires it. Gucci is a civilian now, a businessman, navigating this through mechanisms available to civilians, not the mechanisms that populated his discography a decade ago. Then came the declaration, deserving inscription on a monument. 99% of recording artists have not experienced a fraction of what they describe in their music. It is performance entertainment, the artistic equivalent of method acting translated into audio format. Genuine practitioners do not compose detailed sonic confessions and distribute them to millions. That is not operational security. We did not expect Pacino to genuinely operate a narcotics empire because he portrayed one on screen. We did not demand Hopkins actually consume human beings. The separation between performer and performance is respected in every artistic medium except this one, because the marketing infrastructure deliberately blurred that boundary. Real operators navigate hazardous enterprises in silence behind layers of insulation. They do not release quarterly audio updates detailing methodology to platforms accessible to investigators. The notion that musical content equates to biographical documentation is the most profitable and destructive fiction ever marketed. And the few who did narrate genuine exploits, those are the unintelligent ones whose recording careers served as prosecution exhibits. Timestamp confessions that simplify the investigative process to absurdity. The glorification of self-destruction as prerequisite for cultural credibility is killing people. Literally, young men making irreversible decisions based on a value system manufactured to sell records, while architects remain insulated from consequences. The rapper is in a mansion, the listener who replicated the lifestyle is in a correctional facility, and somehow the listener is characterized as authentic. The mathematics of that equation are inverted beyond justification. We need to demand more from the narratives we consume and the standards we apply to the people we elevate. Before I close, someone expressed appreciation for the spiritual compositions we curate on the secondary channel, saying, "Whoever selects those arrangements possesses a genuinely refined ear." I appreciate that more than I can articulate, because music is not background noise for me. It's a language, a spiritual practice, the medium through which I process the weight of everything we discuss here. And you know how I know my ear for selection is legitimate? I'm left-handed. There's documented research establishing correlation between left-handedness and heightened creative and artistic perception. We process through a different neurological pathway, producing a more intuitive relationship with aesthetic beauty. Can all my fellow Southpaws acknowledge that with a gesture of solidarity? Bringing this full circle, we covered an enormous amount of territory today. Cardi and Stefon appear to be operating in a space of reconnection that has the commentariat simultaneously bewildered and enraged. The J. Prince Jr. situation produced another casualty in NBA Ben 10 and raised deeply uncomfortable questions about recurring proximity of one individual to tragedy. Finesse 2 times has publicly distanced himself from that gravitational field with the urgency of someone who identified the exit before the building collapses. Cisco reminded us that master ownership is the ultimate expression of artistic self-determination, and Big Court delivered a philosophical demolition of the street code mythology that should be mandatory curriculum for anyone consuming hip-hop as lifestyle rather than entertainment. This summer is going to be extraordinarily turbulent. The narratives we're tracking are only accelerating in complexity and consequence, and I have a profound suspicion that what we've witnessed thus far represents merely the preliminary tremors before the seismic event. Stay close, stay attentive, stay discerning. Drop your perspective in the comments. Tell me where you stand on every topic we dissected today. Subscribe if you haven't, activate that notification mechanism, and share this with somebody who needs to hear it, because the conversations we're having carry weight, consequence, and the potential to shift the lens through which you evaluate everything you consume. Until next time, stay sharp, stay blessed, and stay relentless in the pursuit of truth. I'll see you in the next one. Peace, love, and accountability.